And there are big cuts coming to the CBC. This in response to last week's federal budget, which reduced funding to the CBC by $115 million over 3 years. Dana Hutchings is here now with tonight's Checkpoint.
Jim, the CBC detailed its plans to employees this afternoon. Over the next 3 years, 650 jobs will be cut. And something never heard on CBC radio before, the corporation has applied to run ads. As Charmaine Bertram sews up new creations, CBC Radio 2 is always on.
It's just so important to keep that voice, that really, it's our identity. It's part of the Canadian identity.
But that identity is about to change. CBC has applied to run ads on the music channel. The network president says it's a difficult decision, but a necessary one.
A very important focus on us on trying to increase our revenues, to lessen the cuts and the impact on programs and services for Canadians.
At a town hall meeting, employees learned 650 jobs will be cut over the next 3 years, and $43 million will be slashed from English television productions. CBC says original programming will be slashed, documentary productions will shrink, and news budgets will be trimmed.
Our commitment to news remains very strong. We know that the news brand, the CBC news brand, is incredibly respected, and it is very much dependent upon by Canadians. That will not diminish.
In the House, opposition was swift.
The wolves are at the door, Mr. Speaker. The Conservative cuts will kill plans for new programming, forces CBC off the air in rural and remote communities.
Our budget provides the funds necessary for the CBC to fulfill their obligations under the Broadcast Act and to go further and to implement their 2015 plan.
But the changes have some wondering how Canadian the CBC will be with ads on the radio. As for Bertram, she'll keep listening, even though she knows she won't always like what she hears. Now, we should mention that the CBC has applied to the CRTC to run ads on Radio 2. Radio 1 will remain ad-free. And our Checkpoint question tonight, do you think CBC should start running ads on radio to offset costs?
Sure, they should, because the government's cut their budget by quite a bit. They have to get money from somewhere.
It's a tough call because we love the CBC. We're not happy that the government's cut some funding or is planning to cut them. If I could keep the programming the same and they had to do a little advertising, I would not be totally thrilled, but it is what it is, isn't it? I like the idea of public radio and not having commercial, but it is pretty expensive, and they probably should make some concession for that.
If that's the only way they can survive, yes. Otherwise, it's really nice to have a radio station that doesn't have ads.
I'd hate to see ads. It's really annoying, but I want to keep the radio station. That's the most important thing.
From Facebook, Kevin says ads on CBC is just as unpalatable as reduced programming. This is ridiculous. Jairi says we do not ever want to lose CBC. If advertising will save CBC, then advertise, whatever it takes to keep CBC. And Darren says maybe the CBC should try getting rid of the top of the pyramid and trimming its budget. And our web poll results, 58% think the CBC should run ads, while 42% say no, it should not. As for how this will trickle down and impact local staff and programming, that will be determined in the days to come. And that's tonight's Checkpoint.